Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show. I'm in our D.C. studios, Buck in Miami, where the rain is coming down like crazy. Joined now by someone who is also a South Floridian. He is Congressman Byron Donalds from the great state of Florida. And you were jealous because I'm in a T-shirt and shorts.
Yeah, I'm jealous. That's how I miss it, man. Like, suits are when something serious is happening. Unfortunately, in Washington, we're not doing very serious things right now.
And you and Buck are both now South Floridians. I was asking you because you also grew up in New York. When did you become aware that there was better weather than where you lived in New York? Because my wife's from Michigan. We were talking off the air, and she was like, until she came to the South, she had no idea that there was places where it wasn't gray for months at a time.
Right.
When were you like, man, this Florida's pretty good?
Oh, it was my first winter in college because when I got to Tallahassee, it was still August, so it was nasty hot. I was like, okay, well, it's super humid here, super humid in New York. There's not really much difference, except it's just a little bit hotter here.
Yeah.
And then those winter months came. November came, and it's in Tallahassee. Tallahassee gets cold.
Yeah.
But not like New York. And I was just like, oh, this isn't too bad. Then when I moved to Naples, I was like, oh, shoot. These snowbirds have this thing completely right. You just change your time period, up north, down south, split the year, and you'll be good. Because the weather in Naples is beautiful from about November through March. It's just flat gorgeous.
Tallahassee is the Albany of North Florida, for those who don't know. So it's quite a place. I've actually spent some time there. My in-laws live there, believe it or not, Congressman. So I
never thought about it that way, but you are correct. That is exactly right.
Thank you.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So speaking of Florida stuff, we want to get on the national scene. Trump, the elections, obviously, all that too. I hear from some people who know some things that, there's a couple of jobs you might be up in the running for. But at some point in the future, would you be interested in being governor of this great state of Florida?
I would. But
Nice.
a lot of time between now and then. Look, everybody knows, Governor DeSantis, he's terming out. And so it's going to be, I think, a free-for-all for who's going to replace him. A lot of good people on that list. But, the voters will decide how that's going to go. I actually don't think it's going to be that big of a race, honestly. And so probably all the press people in Florida are like, oh, shoot, did you hear what he says? You don't think it's going to be a big field. I just think that in governor's races, it's different than if you're dealing with a congressional race or a state house race or something like that.
Because it takes so much resources to jump in compared to
resources. It's big. It's big money, man. I think you're talking $15 to $35 million or more. And then, at that level, people pretty much are defined, or people have a good understanding of who people are. And so it's hard to cut through. So I don't really think it's going to be a big field, but I think it's going to be real competition.
Well, Buck mentioned a couple potentially. Governor's up in 26. You're also on the Trump VP list.
Yep.
What has that been like? Because you're around Buck and mine's age. You're a guy in your early 40s. Is that a crazy process to go through the vice presidential? I don't even know what forms you fill out. I mean, I haven't filled out a form since FAFSA. I don't think that's anything like this. Maybe a bar exam questionnaire. Like, what is that process like?
I mean, look, I'm not going to get into particulars, but I will tell you that you have no control. You basically are just, doing whatever you've been doing to be on that list, or for the President Trump to basically say, you know what, this person might be a good person. Let's keep an eye on that person. So the way I approach it is I just do what I've been doing. I don't really think much about it. I let everybody else talk about it. I've never been a surrogate for a campaign before. That's really interesting. And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to just work hard at that. And
what is that like? For people who don't know what a surrogate for a campaign is, what does that mean you're doing?
Well, that is like, the campaign will make requests for you to do different news stations or news segments. And so you really just make yourself available to do that. The campaign will send talking points, that kind of stuff. I pretty much do what I want, though. So, it's cool. But, I mean, listen, I asked a couple of them, I'm like, hey, I'm just out here just kind of freewheeling, doing what I want. Are you guys okay? They're like, oh, no, keep going. Like, you're good. So.
We're speaking to Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida. And as you see all this stuff, Congressman, going on, it's amazing. We're in an election cycle, and we're pretty deep into it. We've got the presidential debate just a few weeks away.
Yeah.
We've got multiple cases still pending against Donald Trump, who is the de facto GOP nominee. But it seems like, we just talked to Senator Haggerty about this. None of this legal stuff really seems to be having the impact so far that certainly I think the Democrats thought it would. Do you see any of that changing? Or at the end of the day, anybody who's still thinking about this, say in September, October, is it going to be, the economy, border crime, those kitchen table issues that we always hear about every cycle?
I don't think it's really going to matter at all. And I think the reason why it's not going to matter is because the Democrats and the media, they're one and the same. They have been pushing this narrative for a year and a half against, the most defined human being on the planet. Like it's Donald Trump is universally defined. You know who he is. You know what he is. You know what he's not. And so they've been pushing this constant narrative, even if you go back to 2016, about, he's a Russian agent, or, oh, no, he's corrupt, or, oh, no, he's impeached. All this craziness. There's always been this media-driven, Democrat-driven chaos. And so people are just looking at it like, oh, well, it's just one more thing to them, because it's really all become white noise at this point. And so people are seeing through it. It's not even something that bothers them anymore. And then the people who actually dig into this stuff realize it's just political and it's just persecution, and they think that sucks, and they think it's disgusting. And I think that goes to the $200 million that he raised right after the verdict in Lower Manhattan, because people know it's BS. And so it's not going to matter. It's not going to play in. And then when you add in Joe Biden, I call him the master of disaster. That's who he is. The thing, just his presidency has been awful. And you look at the outcomes of his presidency, people are already upset. And then they see that they just still can't get Donald Trump, they just can't get away from him. They have Trump derangement syndrome, and I think people are going to largely ignore the cases. So let me explain two things, really two simple things. First, Biden has put serious pressure and pain on the pocket of a man.
Yeah.
Everything's more expensive. I'm not making enough money to catch up. I was doing much better when Trump was in office than I am with Biden. That the MSNBC did it a couple months ago, that barbershop talk, and the guys were like, man, we've only known two presidents and he's been better.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. Like, it's real. It's not a mirage. It's not just something that popped up in Poland. Second thing is this gender fluidity mess that the Dems constantly push. A lot of black men in our country ain't for that. They're just not for that. They want their sons to be sons. They want their sons to grow up to be men. They want their daughters to be ladies and women. They want them to grow up to become women. They're not with all of that stuff. They respect people who might be lesbian or gay or bisexual, whatever, but they're not with this whole puberty blocker. You're not going to tell me what my child is saying in school mess. They are not for that.
Or girls having to compete against dudes pretending to be girls.
They're really not for that. And so those are the two things why you're seeing that shift. Immigration is now popped into that, because with immigration, they're saying, like, well, wait a minute. I'm doing everything I can to build myself, and then you're going to let people just come in by the millions and just hand them stuff? That's not sitting well with them either. And the immigration piece is what's starting to have some black women say, wait a minute. So it's a real thing. My friend Wesley Hunt, and who's on Capitol Hill with me out of Texas, Wesley and I talk about this. I got that mess in Philadelphia where the Democrats are gaslighting and lying about me. That's all Wesley's fault. I'm gonna blame Wesley on national. For
people who
radio.
don't know that story, what happened?
We were in Philadelphia at a Black Outreach event in Philly, and in that time we were talking just about economics, and then families came up. Actually, a black woman sitting in the front row got up and started talking about her family history and what she and the things that went on in her life and what she wanted to see going forward. Wesley started talking about his family makeup and his family background, and then I started talking about mine. And it was 3 different stories. We're all black people, but it was just 3 different stories. And so then I just went into the talking about how, yes, Al Sharpton and Hakeem Jeffries in the Biden campaign during the Jim Crow era, which was terrible for black people, the black family was far more together, far more united in a lot of respects because they had to be to fight the oppression they were dealing with. But when we were having this conversation in Philly, we're just having it was a room about 100 black people. We were just in there just talking, having a good time, and it came up. And so they took that to say that, oh, I thought Jim Crow was great.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. I mean, these people acted like I wanted Beetlejuice to appear. And it's so dumb. But this is the gaslighting and lying that happens in politics. And that's another thing that black men in particular, but people in our country are starting to reject is the gaslighting, the race baiting, the lying, the politicizing of comments and of certain topics to distract from what's really happening in the country.
Congressman
That's a
Byron
game
Donalds,
changer.
appreciate you being with us. And if you and Clay go out for drinks, please keep him out of trouble. And I'm sorry you're going to have to loan him a blazer and a tie for anywhere you're going to want to go. He's dressed like he's on a Jerry Garcia on tour or something. Anyway.
By the way, to give Buck credit, you don't think that they're going to drop Joe Biden.
No, I don't think they're going to drop Joe. I don't think Joe's staying.
Yep. That's definitely.
Real quick, all I'll say is, and I know you guys got to pay bills, it's not even so much about Joe anymore, is that nobody else has his level of name ID.
Yeah.
So now you got to explain a whole new person to the Democrat side, the Democrat voters in America. They already have voter apathy problems today. I think he stays. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yep. They'll vote for the name, even if the guy doesn't look like he can function, which I think is pretty obvious. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, anytime, guys.